What's up, everyone? This is, let me turn the sound off on TNA. No surrender. Okay, this is the year in wrestling video 1996 part 1. I'm excited. I'm pumped up. I'm very happy to talk about 1996. It was a great year in wrestling. A lot of exciting stuff happened. So I'm really excited to talk about 96, finally. Before I talk about the first pay-per-view of the year, WWF Royal Rumble 96, I'm going to talk about some news items that happened in 96. January 5th, 96, no longer Dean Douglas. Shane Douglas makes a return to ECW in the ECW arena, and comments about his time in the WWF. January, what is this? Where the hell was I? January 25th, the Road Warriors finally returned to WCW as a tag team at Clash of Champions in January 23rd, 1996. The Road Warriors returned to the Clash of Champions in Las Vegas. Also on that show, Miss Elizabeth returned to wrestling and made a return to pro wrestling. This time in WCW, Miss Elizabeth returns by the side of Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage temporarily, because after that she would turn on the Macho Man at SuperBrawl and cost him the world title, and Ric Flair would become champion. And Miss Elizabeth then, for the rest of the year, would hang out with the Four Horsemen and Ric Flair, and then she was finally forced to join the NWO, and then she was an NWO member. That was January 23rd. The Road Warriors returned to WCW, and Miss Elizabeth returned to wrestling, working for WCW. December 19th, days after announcing the signing of Razor Ramon versus Goldust in a street fight at WrestleMania 12, the WWF suspends Razor Ramon for unprofessional conduct. For 6 weeks, they suspend Razor Ramon. As everybody knows, Razor Ramon was not and did not appear on WrestleMania 12. So I guess he was suspended. And I don't know what he did to get suspended. I don't really care. It was actually a good thing he was suspended for WrestleMania 12, because Rowdy Piper got to take on Goldust in the great match, the Hollywood Backlot Brawl that they had. March 5th, before the next story, March 5th, 96, the WWF issues a statement that Big Daddy Cool Diesel Kevin Nash will be leaving the WWF. His last day with the company is on June 6th. March 11th, 96, Rick and Scott Steiner make a surprise return to WCW to face the Road Warriors on Monday Night Nitro. And that's all the news I got so far. I'll talk about more news items in future videos about 96. Now I'm going to talk about WWF Royal Rumble 1996. Took place from Fresno, California on January 21st, 96. First match of the pay-per-view, I believe, was Ahmed Johnson defeating Jeff Jarrett by disqualification when Jeff Jarrett smashed a guitar over the head of Ahmed Johnson. And that was an awesome spot. I enjoyed it. Jeff Jarrett jumped off the top and smashed his guitar over the head of Ahmed Johnson. And I was an Ahmed Johnson fan in '96. I was a fan of his. Even though he didn't stay around long in wrestling, he was around late 95, 96, 97, and part of 98, and then he was gone. Up next at the Royal Rumble was the Tag Team Championships. The Smoking Guns defending against Skip and Zip with their manager, Sonny. And the Smoking Guns would retain their tag team titles, defeating Skip and Zip. And Sonny was at ringside, and she looked smoking hot. She looked very good at Royal Rumble '96. Up next, Intercontinental Championship on the line. Goldust defeats Razor Ramon to win the Intercontinental Championship. This is Goldust's first title win in the WWF. I was happy for him. Goldust in '96 was very controversial. A lot of people didn't like him, but I didn't mind him. I thought he was a great character, so I was glad he won the Intercontinental title. And he defeated Razor Ramon. Razor was a top star in the WWF for a long time. So that really helped the push of Goldust, having him defeat Razor Ramon. That was a great idea and the right decision. And the 1-2-3 Kid interfered in Razor versus Goldust and basically cost Razor the title. Because 1-2-3 Kid and Razor Ramon were feuding at the time. Up next was the 30-man over-the-top rope Royal Rumble match. You had guys in there like Vader was in it. Made his WWF pay-per-view debut. Vader was in it. His team from Japan, the Headhunters, they were in it. I think Yokozuna was in it. British Bulldog was in it. Owen Hart was in it. Shawn Michaels, Diesel was in it. And Steve Austin was in it as the ringmaster. What a god-awful shit gimmick that was. And I don't know who else was in it. But, as everybody knows, Shawn Michaels super kicks Diesel over the top rope and wins the 1996 Royal Rumble. Shawn Michaels wins back-to-back Royal Rumble matches. So, good for him. That was awesome. So, Shawn Michaels wins the Royal Rumble, and it went 58 minutes and 46 seconds. In the last match, the main event, I guess it was the main event. The Royal Rumble match, in my opinion, should always be the main event and should always be the last match on the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. But the last match in '96 was for the WWF Championship. It was Bret Hart defending against The Undertaker. And more interference in this match. Diesel came out, pulled the referee's leg out of the ring, pulled the ref out of the ring, got Undertaker disqualified. And then Diesel, as he was leaving, he went like this and he gives a finger to the Undertaker. That was pretty awesome because in '95 and WWF was kid friendly most of the '90s until '96 and '97. So they were starting to get their attitude a little bit. In early 1996, you had Kevin Nash giving The Undertaker the finger. and we all know what that means. So Taker was pissed. He got screwed by Diesel, and that would set up their match at WrestleMania 12. Royal Rumble 96, it was pretty good. Shawn Michaels winning was good. Taker, Bret, they had a good match, as they usually always did, put on a good match. Bret and Taker always worked really well together. It was also nice seeing Sunny. As I said, she was in her prime as her looks go. She was in her prime. She looked smoking hot and super sexy. And Jeff Jarrett breaking his guitar over Ahmed Johnson's head, that was also a highlight. And Goldust winning the Intercontinental title, that was also a highlight, in my opinion. So I enjoyed Royal Rumble 96. Good pay-per-view. Up next, I'm going to talk about WWF in Your House. Rage, I think it was called Rage in the Cage. In WWF in 96, they had 12 pay-per-views. So a pay-per-view every month. WCW only had 10. I thought they had 12, but it was only 10. In 97, WCW would get 12 pay-per-views and put on 12 a month. But in 96, they only put on 10. And the WWF put on 12. So, now I'm talking about In Your House, number 6. It was called Rage in the Cage because of the main event was a WWF title match in a steel cage. Now, here we go with In Your House from February 18th, 96. And these are pay-per-view matches. I had a list of dark matches and pre-show matches. I'm not going to read them. Pay-per-view matches. Hunter Hearst Helmsley defeats Duke the Dumpster Droese. I don't know why the F Duke Droese was still around in 96. He shouldn't have been. Yokozuna defeats Davey Boy Smith by disqualification when Jim Cornette and Big Van Vader interfered. And Yokozuna was part of Jim Cornette, and Jim Cornette was managing Yokozuna for at least 2 years. So Yoko finally snapped on a Monday Night Raw. I think he was teaming, it was Yokozuna and the British Bulldog on a Monday Night Raw. I just watched it from February 5th, 96. Shawn Michaels Diesel versus British Bulldog and Yokozuna. And Jim Cornette was yelling at Yokozuna after the match, going like this, poking him in the chest, screaming at him. And then Yokozuna snapped and punched and knocked Jim Cornette on his ass, knocked him down. And then Owen Hart and British Bulldog jumped Yokozuna and attacked him. So Yokozuna was done with Jim Cornette. He was done with him. So Yokozuna was basically a babyface now. That's why he took on British Bulldog at In Your House in February. And Vader got suspended. Vader was suspended the night after Royal Rumble on Raw. Vader was suspended for attacking WWF President Gorilla Monsoon. He attacked him. He did a Vader bomb to him. We're off the second rope, and Gorilla Monsoon was taken out as president. And they brought in Rowdy Piper to replace Gorilla Monsoon as an intern, or as a replacement, short-term replacement for Gorilla Monsoon. So Rowdy Piper was the new president. And Rowdy Piper made the cage match of Diesel versus Bret Hart for this pay-per-view. Also, on the February 5th, 96 Raw, you had WWF airing, and they started the Billionaire Ted segments, where they were basically making fun of Billionaire Ted and Nacho Man and Hulkster, or whatever the hell his name was. They're making fun of Ted Turner, and the segments were pretty damn entertaining. Up next at In Your House was Shawn Michaels put his Royal Rumble win and his title shot at WrestleMania on the line against Owen Hart. And Shawn Michaels would defeat Owen Hart. And they had a pretty good match. Shawn Michaels and Owen Hart, they always had great matches together against each other. Up next was Razor Ramon versus the 1-2-3 Kid in a crybaby match. This was just awful and stupid, dumbass gimmick match. It was just stupid. Razor Ramon defeats the 1-2-3 Kid, and I believe he put him in a diaper and gave him a baby bottle. It was ridiculous, and it was just stupid as hell. Up next in the main event was Bret Hart defending the WWF Championship against Big Daddy Cool Diesel in a steel cage match. This was a pretty good match. I enjoyed it. And the finish was, you had The Undertaker. The lights may have gone out. I don't remember. But The Undertaker came up from the mat, ripped the mat open, came up from under the ring, and pulled Diesel into the hole. Pulled Diesel into the hole with him. So he pulled Diesel under the ring. And Diesel would come out of the hole. I guess after beating up The Undertaker, Diesel would come out of the hole in the ring, come up from it. His leather pants were ripped. And Bret Hart escaped the steel cage when The Undertaker interfered and pulled Diesel under the ring with him. So Bret Hart retains the championship. Bret Hart goes to WrestleMania 12 as WWF champion to defend it. And Shawn Michaels beat Owen Hart, so he's going to WrestleMania to face Bret Hart. And they would have a classic and epic Iron Man match. And Undertaker would get some revenge on Diesel for screwing him at the Royal Rumble. The Undertaker now screws Diesel at In Your House before WrestleMania. So In Your House number 6, it was a pretty decent show. Shawn Michaels' Owen was good, and the main event was good. The other matches I could have gone without seeing because they were pretty boring. So now I'm going to talk about WCW SuperBrawl from February or March, I think March 96. Or February. WCW SuperBrawl 6 from February 17th, 96, St. Petersburg, Florida. Here we go. First matchup was the Nasty Boys defeated the Public Enemy in a street fight, and they were two brawling teams, and that's what they did. Up next was television champion Johnny B. Bad with the Diamond Doll. The Diamond Doll was Kimberly, DDP's wife at the time. Pinned, Johnny B. Bad defeats and pins Diamond Dallas Page to retain the TV title. And Mark Merrill, Johnny B. Bad would debut at WrestleMania 12 in a backstage segment, but would not wrestle. So this was February, and a month later he would show up and sign with the WWF. So I don't know what happened to the WCW TV title. Must have been vacated because Johnny B. Bad left as champion. Up next, World Tag Team Championship on the line. Lex Luger and Sting defeat the team of Harlem Heat when the Road Warriors came out and interfered. So Sting and Luger retained the tag titles, and they were pretty good tag champs. They worked well as a team together. Conan, U.S. champion Conan, defeated the one-man gang to retain the U.S. title in a strap match. Now this was odd, and this was crazy, and this was pretty confusing when I watched it at the time. I think a lot of fans were confused because Brian Pillman was supposed to fight or wrestle Kevin Sullivan in a strap match, and then Kevin Sullivan did not come out until the very end. So it was Brian Pillman versus Arn Anderson in a strap match, and they had a pretty good strap match. And then Kevin Sullivan would finally come out towards the end. I think Ric Flair may have been at ringside or came out to break it up. Kevin Sullivan came out. Brian Pillman got out of the ring, picked up the microphone, and then got out of the ring and said, or something like, "I quit." I don't know what he said. I don't even remember. Something like, or "I respect you, Booker man." And I guess he's making fun of Kevin Sullivan because he was a booker at the time in WCW. Backstage, he was the booker, head booker, I think. Him and Bischoff, and maybe some other people. I don't think Bischoff was a booker, but he did come up with a lot of storylines. So, he says, "I respect you, Booker, man." And then Brian Pillman leaves the ring. And that was just odd. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what the hell was going on at the time, because I was only 12 years old. I didn't even know what a booker was in wrestling. I didn't really know what it meant. So, that match was odd. And then Brian Pillman left, and he never returned to WCW after SuperBrawl. He would debut and show up in the WWF and sign with the WWF in May or June, maybe April of '96. Brian Pillman would sign with the WWF. And after that, sadly, Brian Pillman would get in a really bad car accident and really mess up his ankle. So after he signed with right after he signed, maybe it was before he signed or after he signed, he was in a really bad car accident, and he could not wrestle or work for probably close to a year until like April '97. He finally got in the ring. So, that was that. And Ric Flair came out, and he convinced Brian Pillman and Arn Anderson to stop fighting. And then I think Kevin Sullivan came out. In another World Tag Team title match, Lex Luger and Sting wrestled the Road Warriors to a no contest. I don't know what happened there. Must have been double disqualification. Harlem Heat probably interfered. Up next, Ric Flair in the not the main event, but I guess it was a double main event. They had two cage matches on SuperBrawl '96, so this was the first of the main events. World Champion Macho Man Randy Savage against the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Macho Man had Miss Elizabeth by his side. I believe Ric Flair, I was just looking at TNA because it's still on. Rockstar Spud and Austin Aries going at it. Miss Elizabeth was with Macho Man. I believe Woman was with Ric Flair. And Miss Elizabeth would turn on Randy Savage and take off her high heel shoe, hand it to Ric Flair in the cage. He would hit Randy Savage with the high heel shoe, and Ric Flair would win the WCW World Championship again from Randy Savage. Starrcade 95, Ric Flair won the WCW title, and then he lost it very early on in January of 96. He lost it back to Macho Man on a WCW Monday Nitro from Las Vegas. So Macho Man became the champion on a Nitro. And that was the first world title change on a Monday night show ever. The WWF never had a world title change on Raw until, I want to say, 1998. They had a title change on Raw. The world title changed hands on Raw. And I think it was Kane versus Stone Cold, where Stone Cold won the title back after the King of the Ring 98 on Raw. So, but WCW did it first. They had their world titles change hands on Monday Nitro. They did it in 96 at least 3 times. So Macho Man wins the title from Ric Flair after Starrcade on Nitro in January 96. And then this February 96, Ric Flair defeats Macho Man and wins it back from Macho Man at SuperBrawl 96. So Ric Flair was the new WCW World Champion, and he would hold that title until May of 96. I think it was May 96. I just want to make sure, so I'm going to look it up. It was April 22nd, 96. The Giant defeated Ric Flair for the WCW Championship on Nitro. And Macho Man defeated Ric Flair earlier in January on Nitro. That was January 22nd, where Ric Flair lost the title back to Macho Man. And then the Giant defeated Ric Flair on April 22nd on Nitro to win the title for the second time. Or first time. Whatever. I don't think they counted the Giants' first time winning the title from Hogan because they'd vacate the title and it was up for grabs in World War III. So, 96, I think that was the Giants' first real title win. World title win. The next main event in a steel cage was Hulk Hogan against the Giant in a steel cage match. It was okay. They couldn't do that much, but it was decent. It was a decent match. It wasn't that bad. Hulk Hogan defeats the Giant, and Hogan was still wearing the red and yellow at SuperBrawl, and the fans were booing him out of the building, and they did not care to cheer Hulkamania anymore. A lot of Hogan's fans from the 80s were growing up, and they did not want to cheer Hulkamania anymore. So he was getting booed a lot, and Hogan, before he turned heel, was getting a lot of Hogan sucks, Hogan sucks, Hogan sucks chants in the arenas. So obviously Hogan knew that, and Jimmy Hart knew it, Eric Bischoff knew it. It was time for a change, and I'm glad that Hogan was smart enough to go through with turning heel, because the NWO spot was offered to Sting first. Eric Bischoff wanted Sting to turn heel and join the NWO, but Sting, he was nervous about doing it, so he didn't do it. He didn't go through with it, and I don't blame him. Hogan, I'm sure, was nervous also, but he knew he had to go through with being a heel because his babyface Hulkamania character, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, that was not working anymore, and that was not getting over anymore, period. So that was WCW SuperBrawl number 6 from February 97. 96, not 97. I'm talking about 96. So I talked about Royal Rumble, In Your House, Rage in the Cage, SuperBrawl. I guess I'll talk about WCW Uncensored and then I'll be done with this part 1 of 1996. Because I got a lot of pay-per-views to talk about. And some, I'm not going to discuss every single match because it would take too long. Uncensored 96 took place March 10th, 96. U.S. champion. The first match on the pay-per-view was Conan defeating Eddie Guerrero in 18 minutes. And they had a good match, as always. They always had good matches, one-on-one. The Belfast Bruiser, who was Fit Finlay, defeated Lord Steven Regal by disqualification when Bobby Eaton and David Taylor interfered to help Lord Steven Regal. And Regal and Belfast Bruiser Fit Finlay would go on to have a great feud in 96. And they had great matches together. They worked really good together. Up next was Colonel Robert Parker versus Medusa. And Colonel Robert Parker would defeat Medusa. And it wasn't much of a match. It was only 3 minutes, 50 seconds. The Booty Man. This is what I think of the Booty Man. He was awful. His character was awful. And he was just awful. The Booty Man defeats Diamond Dallas Page, and I felt bad for DDP. Diamond Dallas Page was always jobbing on every pay-per-view from 94 to 96. He didn't really get over until 97. From help from Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, and the NWO got DDP over when they wanted him to join, and then he did not, and he diamond cut Scott Hall on Nitro. And then he ran into the crowd, and the crowd loved it, and DDP was over right away from that diamond cutter. The Giant, after the Booty Man defeated DDP, and that match went on way too long. It was 16 minutes. It went on way too long. It should not even been on the pay-per-view. The Giant defeated Loch Ness. Loch Ness, I guess they're calling him that to rip off the Loch Ness Monster gimmick character. Anyways, Loch Ness, this guy had a big beard. He was super overweight. He was obese. He looked over 400 pounds, close to 500. I think they were calling him 600 pounds. Maybe he was 600. I don't know. But the Giant defeats Loch Ness very quick in 2 minutes and 34 seconds. Loch Ness, I don't know where he came from. I guess WCW found him on the Indies or somewhere. I don't know where the guy came from. I never seen him before Uncensored 96, and I haven't seen him after Uncensored 96 ever since. He just disappeared. And I think Loch Ness died. I don't know what year, but I think I heard he died. Booker T and Sting were teaming up to take on the Road Warriors in a Chicago street fight. And this was a good match. Very good street fight. Sting and Booker T worked really well together. It went on a little bit too long. It was 29 minutes, 28 seconds. After Stevie Ray interfered and cracked Road Warrior Hawk with a chair and knocked him out. And then I believe they taped, or Lex Luger or somebody taped Road Warrior Animal's hands to a steel bar or something, and he couldn't get out. So Booker T and Sting win the Chicago street fight. Up next was the main event, the Doomsday 3 levels Doomsday cage match. Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage were taking on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys. At least 8 guys. 8 against 2. That makes a lot of sense. No, it doesn't at all. WCW makes 0 sense. But that's what they did. So, the Doomsday Cage match was Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage against Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Kevin Sullivan, Lex Luger, The Barbarian, Meng, Z-Gangster, and The Ultimate Solution in the Doomsday Cage match. And this was set up, the Doomsday Cage was set up near the entranceway. So, I'm sure it was hard for a lot of the fans to even see the match. It was it was a mess for the fans in the arena, but it was decent watching it on television because they had the cameras inside the cage, so at least we could see. But I'm sure the people in the arena were pissed and couldn't see a damn thing. And this match wasn't very good. It was entertaining, but it wasn't very good. But maybe I was entertained because I was 12 years old. I don't know. And Bobby Heenan had a really funny line during this match. I think when Ric Flair or when somebody got put in a figure 4. I don't remember the line, but Bobby Heenan said something about if you put a dog in a figure 4, it'd be a figure 8 or something like that. It was just funny as hell. And I really laughed my ass off when I watched it over a year ago, and I heard Bobby Heenan say that funny line during the Doomsday Cage about a dog, or go put your Doberman in a figure 8 or figure 4. It was funny as hell. So that was Uncensored 96. Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage defeat 8 guys. And Z-Gangster was Zeus, also known as the character from the first Friday movie. Everybody should know who Zeus is. If you don't, he was also in a couple movies, and he was in Friday, the first Friday movie. So that was Z-Gangster. I guess they couldn't call him Zeus, so they decided to call him Z-Gangster. And the other guy just looked like some white guy who was just, I guess, a bodybuilder. That's who he was. He had no wrestling experience. He looked awful in the ring. And the Ultimate Solution was not ultimate. He was awful. And Z-Gangster wasn't any good either in the ring. And I don't know who the hell booked the Doomsday Cage match, because it was a mess. You had 8 guys against 2, and then the 2 guys win it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's real believable. Anyways, WCW in the beginning of 96 did a lot of stupid, dumb shit that made no sense. So that was Uncensored 96. Next video, I will talk about WrestleMania 12. And I will talk about Slamboree. And I'll talk about In Your House pay-per-views after WrestleMania. I hope if you watch this video, The Year in Wrestling 1996 Part 1, thank you very much for watching, everybody. I'm going to get back to watching TNA because earlier I was gone shopping really long at a mall and I missed TNA. I'm thankful that TNA does a replay on Destination America, so I'm going to get back to watching TNA now. If you watched my video or any of my videos ever, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter at TNA WWE Guy. Bye for now.
So many ways, like